We will see the case of Carmen, the mummified witch. It is not the first nor the last stop we will make in Guanajuato, because this state is famous for being home to hundreds of legends and stories that catalog it as one of the most haunted places in Mexico. It was the year 1865. In Guanajuato, on a day that felt different from the others, there was a vibrancy and astonishment in every street, every house, every bus. Not every piece of news would move the whole state, but this one would give rise to a new legend for these lands. Guided by the voices of the people, we arrived at the Pantheon of Santa Paula, where in the distance, between some graves, we saw the movement of the Pantheon staff, authorities and other workers. We edged closer, opening a small space among the people who, like us, wanted to hear and know what had happened. Faster than the wind, the news ran that day. The astonishment of the crowd was contagious, and we heard and saw that in some of the tombs dozens of corpses had been found. They were not as one would usually expect in a funeral or a state of decomposition, but in a state of complete mummification. Nails, hair, clothes, it was possible to observe how some of them were remarkably preserved. It would be a lie to say it was a specific group. Men, women, elderly people, children and even babies were the protagonists of this incredible discovery. Noticing not only the impressive preservation but also the passage of time, visible yet somehow arrested, the sight of those mortuary figures was shocking, especially the babies. Of all the bodies, one figure captured attention that day and for years to come. The figure of an old woman, almost perfectly preserved. The reasons were obvious. Religious objects hung around her neck, hair and clothes that seemed to have been left untouched over the years, and her hands tied. As if to add to the drama, she was locked in a cage wrapped in chains and locks, giving the impression that no one wanted to risk what she might contain. It is said that the name of that enigmatic woman was Carmen. As memories surfaced among the oldest residents of the streets and houses of Guanajuato, they recalled a story told by their parents and grandparents about a powerful witch who used to walk the streets of old Guanajuato. Carmen lived in the alley of La Cabecita, not far from the Santa Paula Pantheon. She knew, through words, compliments and the attention she received, that she was very beautiful. Her attitudes led her to an egocentric and proud personality regarding her appearance, and it did not take long to realize she could obtain many benefits using the resources nature had given her. Given the situation of Mexico at that time, with sexism predominant and opportunities for women severely limited, Carmen had little option but to use her ways to secure the best life she could. Years passed and the resources did not stop coming thanks to the methods she used. But those mirrors that once advised Carmen began to tell her that things were changing. The softness of her skin, wrinkles, expressions, everything related to her appearance began to suffer the ravages of age. Carmen would not accept this. The constant fear of physical decline and the inevitable passage of time gnawed at her, and she could not tolerate it. The mirror was not the only thing she checked. Seeing herself less admired by the young women around her bred resentment and envy that invaded her. It is said that one night, precisely at midnight, Carmen abandoned the distance of faith she had kept in her life, leaving a vacancy open to any entity or higher force that might return the youth and beauty nature had taken from her. As many legends teach, a being of darkness responded first and almost instantly. What it offered is unknown, but the next day it was evident. Carmen looked younger and more beautiful than anyone had ever seen. Far from being embraced with joy, people began to fear her and distance themselves, saying the dark energy around her would seek them. Even with that bargain, the years did not stop. Time kept showing itself in Carmen's body, and after a while she was seen in the fields collecting certain plants, and in the Pantheon of Santa Paula walking among the graves and gathering human bones with which she was said to perform strange spells or rituals to restore her youth and beauty. The neighbors talked about it daily, and it was only a matter of time before the rumors reached the Holy Inquisition. Without trial or careful inquiry, the Inquisition determined at once that Carmen was a witch. Soon a group of armed men, torches in hand and with makeshift weapons, marched to Carmen's house. They broke down the door, destroyed and threw out everything they found, and dragged Carmen to the Holy Office. Almost without considering any other option, she was sentenced to be buried alive for the crime of witchcraft. They tied her up and hung all kinds of religious articles on her, the very items that would be found many years later. Whether to contain the darkness or as an act of pity, nobody really knows. She was locked in a cage, bound with chains and locks that were blessed in the act, and then buried alive underground. Those who passed this story down say that Carmen was 85 years old by then. Others insist she was 100. We return to the moment when Carmen was found. Unearthing her after all that time, the dark presence emanating from the obvious precautions taken around her body forced those present to protect against any evil she might emit. Chains, locks and the cage became her prison once again on the outside, and so she was exhibited for the next 155 years in the Museum of Mummies of Guanajuato. Around the mummy, one could see crucifixes, chains, scapulars, medals, images and all kinds of religious objects meant to guard what she seemed to contain. When she was found, Carmen still had her hair, clothes and nails, and that empty yet piercing gaze. Many locals say you should never look at her directly. Carmen was part of an exhibition called the Traveling Mummies, and in 2009, along with 36 other mummies from that exhibition, she toured major cities and event centers in the United States. That tour lasted 4 years. It is said that upon returning and arriving at the Mexico City airport, when they opened her crate, a tremor was felt in the city in front of 17 journalists. When she was returned to Guanajuato, the municipal president wanted to see her and ordered the cage opened despite warnings about paranormal consequences. The moment they opened it, a 5.8 magnitude earthquake shook Guanajuato. Convinced by the event, the president ordered her locked back in her cage. This added yet another burden to the story of Carmen, the witch of Guanajuato. But the story did not end there. In May 2020, Jesus Antonio Borja Perez, Director General of Culture and Education of Guanajuato, announced that the mummy would be removed from her cage, locks, chains, crucifixes and any religious objects so she could be exhibited like the other mummies. His staff's recent research concluded that Carmen had very likely not been a witch but a healer. In those times the Holy Office held that all illness could only be relieved by God, and any other practice was considered satanic. From this story we can draw several conclusions, and others we can only imagine. Do you think Carmen received justice? Was it right to punish her for what she was? Or was the spectacle and the legend simply a way to give the museum more attention? The last word is yours.